Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive into the strange and mysterious.
Yeah.
We're going to be looking today
Uh-huh.
at Nightmare Tales by Helena Blavatsky.
Okay.
She's most famous for her work on the occult and theosophy.
Yeah.
And
I heard those terms.
so these aren't your typical ghost stories.
Right.
We're talking about real historical figures.
Oh, wow.
Real events blended with supernatural elements.
Okay. So she's taking real history and weaving in the supernatural.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like a what's real and what's imagined kind of situation.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating about her work is that she wasn't just trying to scare people.
Okay.
She was a leading figure in the theosophical movement,
Right.
which explored spirituality,
Yeah.
psychic phenomena, and the idea that there's a hidden side to reality.
Yeah.
So her stories kind of serve as a way to introduce these concepts
Interesting.
in a really compelling way.
Yeah. So she's using fiction to explore these concepts.
Yeah. It's like she's using fiction to explore philosophical questions
Okay.
about the nature of reality and perception.
Yeah.
And that's what makes her work so relevant even today.
Mm-hmm. So
Because we're still asking these questions.
exactly.
Right.
Okay, so let's dive into one of these tales.
Okay.
A Bewitched Life introduces us to a character who's the ultimate skeptic.
Right.
And he's living in Japan, far from his sister and her family back in Germany.
Okay.
But when their letters suddenly stop, he's consumed with worry.
Oh, no.
It's important to remember the context here.
Yeah.
This is a time before instant communication.
Right.
No emails, no phone calls.
Yeah.
So silence from loved ones was truly unsettling.
Scary.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So our skeptic is desperate for answers. Enter his friend, the Bonds,
Okay.
a Japanese priest who introduces him to a Yamabushi.
A Yamabushi.
Yeah, so you might be wondering, what is a Yamabushi? I am wondering, what is a Yamabushi?
They're these sort of mountain hermits in Japanese tradition, known for their spiritual practices and connection to nature.
Okay.
And the Bonds believes that this particular Yamabushi has psychic powers,
Oh, wow.
including the ability to see into the past and future.
So he's like a fortune teller.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
And, of course, our skeptic is initially dismissive.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, he sees all this as nonsense.
Yeah.
But his anxiety about his sister drives him to try something
Okay.
he never would have considered before.
Yeah. So he's desperate.
He is.
He needs to know what happened to his sister.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he basically throws logic out the window
Yeah.
and decides to give this a shot.
Wow.
And I'm guessing the Yamabushi doesn't disappoint when it comes to the spooky factor.
I'm intrigued what happened.
So the Yamabushi agrees to help,
Okay.
but there's a catch.
Oh, there's always a catch.
He warns the skeptic
Mm-hmm.
that seeing the truth can be a burden. And once you've seen it, there's no going back.
Okay.
Like
So he's saying be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Okay.
So how does this Yamabushi actually tap into these psychic abilities?
Yeah, how does he do it?
Well, he uses a magic mirror
Okay.
and mystical chants
Uh-huh.
to induce a trance-like state
Wow.
in the skeptic.
Okay.
And what follows is a series of visions that are both fascinating and deeply disturbing.
Okay. Hit me with the details. What does he see?
So at first he has an out-of-body experience.
Okay.
He sees himself lying on a settee, seemingly lifeless.
Whoa.
Then he's plunged into darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And when the darkness recedes,
Yeah.
he's bombarded with these horrific images.
Okay.
He sees his brother-in-law mangled and dead,
Oh, no.
the victim of a gruesome factory accident.
Oh, that's awful.
And he's just witnessing this, unable to do anything to stop it.
Right.
And that's one of the unsettling parts.
Yeah.
He describes feeling completely detached,
Oh.
almost clinically observing these tragedies.
What?
No overwhelming grief,
Okay.
just intense curiosity.
So he's not feeling the emotions.
It's like a part of him can't believe what he's seeing.
Right.
So he sees his brother-in-law meet this terrible end.
Mm-hmm.
What about his sister?
Yeah.
Well, the visions get even darker.
Oh, no.
He sees his sister descend into madness, unable to cope with the loss.
Oh, my God.
And then he witnesses his nieces and nephews
Yeah.
facing their own grim fate.
This is heavy.
Poverty, illness, even exploitation.
Whoa.
And all this is happening while he's in this trance-like state in Japan.
Right.
No wonder he's terrified.
Yeah, I'd be terrified too.
And what makes it even more jarring is the time distortion.
Oh, really?
He feels like he's lived through hours of these visions. But when he snaps back to reality,
Yeah.
only 30 seconds have passed.
That's trippy.
It's like his mind was on fast forward while his body stayed behind.
That's wild.
And keep in mind, he's still in the presence of the Yamabushi, who's been chanting and performing rituals this whole time.
Oh.
The Yamabushi then offers to perform a purification ritual
Okay.
to protect him from further visions.
So there's a way to stop them.
There is.
So why doesn't he want that?
Well, remember, he's Mr. Super Skeptic.
Right.
He's so resistant to the idea of the supernatural that he dismisses the entire experience as a hallucination.
So he just refuses to believe it.
Yeah, he's clinging to his rational worldview even though it's crumbling around him.
Okay.
So it's the classic skeptic's dilemma
Yeah.
faced with the unexplainable deny it exists.
That makes sense.
But something tells me those visions aren't going away that easily.
Right.
You're right, and what happens next is even more unsettling.
Uh-oh.
The visions return even more vivid and disturbing than before.
Oh, no.
So we've got our skeptic who's been shown these horrific visions, but he refuses to believe what he's seen.
Yeah.
What happens next?
I don't know what happens.
Well, so we left off with our skeptic in a really tough spot. He's haunted by these visions, but he refuses to believe they're real.
Yeah. It's a classic case of denial.
But before we get back to him, let's jump into another tale from this collection.
Okay.
This one blends real historical events with Blavatsky's fascination with the occult.
Oh, interesting. I like where this is going.
So Can the Double Murder takes us back to 1867
Okay.
to the assassination of Prince Michael Obrenović of Serbia.
Wow. A real historical event.
Yeah, this was a huge deal, a political murder that shocked Europe.
I can imagine.
And get this, the assassins were never caught.
Oh, wow. So a real unsolved mystery.
Exactly.
Okay. So how does Blavatsky fit into all of this?
Well, she was traveling through Europe at the time,
Mm-hmm.
and she met an old Serbian woman who had been close to the prince.
Okay.
And this woman was consumed with grief,
Makes sense.
and she vowed to avenge his death.
Wow.
But she turned to some unconventional methods.
Unconventional methods like what?
Well, Blavatsky describes this woman using a young girl
A young girl.
who seemed to have psychic abilities.
Oh, so they're using psychic powers to solve a murder.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
So did it work? Did the girl actually reveal anything?
It's a really intense scene.
Yeah.
Blavatsky describes how this girl enters a trance, and her body is like taken over by some unseen force.
Else.
And during this trance, she identifies the assassins,
Oh, wow. That's creepy.
even mentions their names.
So they got their answer.
Well, Blavatsky doesn't say if they went after the assassins or not,
Okay.
but the old woman believed that her revenge was successful.
That's pretty intense.
But the story takes another turn,
Oh, really?
shifting our focus to Paris
Ooh, Paris.
and to a character who represents a different, maybe darker side of the occult.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
So we meet this guy who calls himself Victor Lassa.
Victor Lasso.
He's like a psychic
The
celebrity,
psychic celebrity. Okay.
claiming he has this spiritual telegraph that lets him see into people's lives.
Oh, so like he can read minds or something?
Yeah, and even predict the future.
Wow. So he's kind of like the Yamabushi.
Kind of, but I'm getting a different vibe from this guy.
Yeah, me too. A little more sinister.
Definitely Blavatsky hints that his powers might not be entirely natural.
Oh, that's not good.
Like he might be tapping into darker forces.
So like a dark psychic?
Exactly.
Okay.
And people who visit him experience some unsettling things.
Like what?
One guy sees a vision of his friend betraying him.
Oh, no.
Another gets a threatening message warning him against spying.
That's creepy.
So he's like this psychic con man, but with real power.
That's a dangerous combo.
And then we meet another character, a police inspector
Okay.
named Paul Delasert.
Paul Delasert.
And he is determined to expose this guy as a fraud.
Oh, so we've got the skeptic versus the psychic.
Yeah, it's a classic showdown.
So what happened?
Well, Delasert goes undercover to investigate,
Hmm?
and he experiences firsthand DeLassa's abilities.
So he's convinced that there's something real there.
Yeah, but when he confronts DeLassa,
Uh-huh.
the psychic is totally unfazed.
He's not scared at all.
Nope. Even challenges Delasert to expose him.
Oh, that's bold.
But Delasert gets obsessed with unmasking this guy.
Oh.
And then he starts experiencing these really strange symptoms.
Like what?
Headaches, anxiety,
Yeah.
a sense of impending doom.
Oh, that's not good.
And then he collapses and dies.
Oh my God, what happened?
Well, the story leaves it open to interpretation.
Hmm?
Officially, the cause of death was apoplexy.
Okay.
But the timing and Delasert's own claims that he felt doomed
Right.
suggests that something more sinister might have happened.
So the psychic maybe killed him with his mind.
It's definitely implied.
That's terrifying.
So I think Blavatsky is giving us a warning here,
Yeah.
showing us both the allure and the danger of the occult.
Right, because it can be both fascinating and dangerous.
Exactly. But what about our original skeptic from A Bewitched Life?
Yeah, what happened to him?
Well, he eventually returns to Germany, hoping to find his sister and help his nieces and nephews.
Okay.
Remember, he still thinks those visions were hallucinations.
Right.
But as he learns more about his family's situation, he makes a horrifying discovery.
Oh, no.
Everything he saw in those visions was true.
Oh, my goodness. Talk about a reality check.
So his skepticism is shattered.
So what happens to him? Does he lose it?
Well, Blavatsky doesn't give us a clear ending.
Okay.
Instead, she leaves us with a powerful question.
What's the question?
Why was he tormented by these visions?
That is a good question.
Was it a warning, a punishment, or something else entirely?
It's like she wants us to think about it.
Exactly, and that's what's so brilliant about her writing.
Yeah.
She leaves us grappling with the possibilities,
Right.
questioning our own assumptions about reality and perception.
It makes you think about the world in a different way.
Okay, so let's lighten things up a bit.
Okay, I could use a break from all the doom and gloom.
Let's look at karmic visions.
Okay.
This one explores the relationship between our past lives and our current challenges.
Oh, past lives. I'm into that.
So karmic visions is a little different.
How so?
It moves away from the horror elements
Mm-hmm.
and delves into the concepts of reincarnation and karma.
Okay, those are big ideas.
Yeah, and they're central to Blavatsky's theosophical beliefs.
Right.
Now, in theosophy, karma isn't about punishment or reward.
Okay.
It's about cause and effect.
So, like, what you do comes back to you.
Exactly. It's the idea that our actions, thoughts, even our intentions
Mm-hmm.
create ripples that influence not just our present lives,
Uh-huh.
but also our future incarnations.
Okay, so, like, our actions in this life can affect our next life.
That's the idea.
That's pretty wild.
So the story is about what Blavatsky calls a soul ego.
A soul ego. Okay, what's that?
It's not a term you'll find in a psychology textbook,
Right.
but it's her way of describing the eternal spiritual aspect of ourselves,
Okay.
the part of us that transcends individual lifetimes.
So, like, the core of who we are.
Exactly. And in this story, the soul ego goes on a journey
Okay.
through a series of lives,
Oh, wow.
each with its own lessons and challenges.
So it's like a cosmic road trip for the soul.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So where does this road trip take the soul ego?
Well, it starts in a blissful state, enjoying the simple things in life,
Sounds nice.
but then it gets drawn into experiences of war and violence,
Oh, no.
driven by the desire for power and glory.
So the classic tale of innocence lost.
Yeah, and as it goes through more lifetimes,
Mm-hmm.
experiencing both triumphs and tragedies,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to see the true cost of these ego-driven pursuits.
Like it's not all it's cracked up to be.
Exactly, the suffering, the loss,
Yeah.
the destruction.
Wow.
It all starts to weigh on the soul ego.
So it's like a karmic wake-up call.
Yeah, like chasing after power and glory isn't fulfilling.
Right.
And as the soul ego evolves,
Mm-hmm.
it starts to want something more,
Something deeper.
something beyond the cycle of suffering.
Okay.
And in the final vision of karmic visions,
Huh?
this theme really comes into focus.
What happens?
The soul ego finds itself in a future world where war has been abolished
Wow, that's amazing.
and humanity is living in harmony.
Sounds like paradise.
But just as the soul ego is about to give this big speech about peace,
Yeah.
it suddenly finds itself back in another body,
Oh, what?
facing new challenges.
So even after all that, it's still stuck in the cycle.
It's a reminder that spiritual growth is an ongoing journey.
Not a destination.
Exactly.
That's a good reminder.
And even though the soul ego hasn't reached enlightenment,
Right.
it's still carrying those lessons into each new lifetime.
So we're always learning and growing.
That's the idea.
That's hopeful.
And it all connects back to karma.
How so?
We carry the baggage of our past actions,
Yeah.
but we also have the opportunity to learn and grow from those experiences.
I like that.
Which brings us to another tale, The Blue Lotus.
The Blue Lotus. Okay.
This one explores transformation through sacrifice.
Sacrifice. That's interesting.
So this story is presented more as a legend or a fable.
Okay.
It's set in ancient India
Mm-hmm.
and revolves around a king named Ambarisha.
Okay.
He makes a desperate vow to the god Varuna.
What kind of vow?
He promises to sacrifice his firstborn son
Oh, wow. His firstborn son.
in exchange for an heir to his throne.
That's a big sacrifice.
A pretty steep price to pay.
Yeah.
And as you can imagine, things get complicated
I bet.
when his son is actually born.
Right.
And he has to face this dilemma.
Yeah.
Does he go through with it?
I don't know. What would you do?
Well, he tries to find a loophole
Okay.
But his son Rohita is described as selfish and cowardly,
Oh, not a good look.
unwilling to make any sacrifices for his people.
So they need a new sacrificial lamb.
Exactly. And then we meet this incredibly virtuous character named Sunasefa,
Sunasefa.
and he offers to take Rohita's place.
Wow, that's selfless.
He believes that sacrificing himself will appease the god and save countless lives.
So he's willing to give up his own life for others.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
So they tie him to the altar, light the fire,
Oh my goodness.
and just as the flames are about to engulf Sunasefa,
Yeah,
a blue mist descends,
a blue mist.
and the god Indra appears.
Oh wow, so like a divine intervention.
He rescues Sunasefa from certain death.
Amazing.
And then Rohita, the cowardly prince,
Yeah.
is transformed into a deer
What a dear.
and ends up being sacrificed in Sunasefa's place.
Oh, wow. So he gets what he deserves.
You could say that.
That's karma.
And there's one more detail.
Okay.
The lake where the sacrifice was supposed to happen
Mhm.
was originally filled with white lotuses.
Okay.
But after Sunasefa's rescue, all the lotuses turn blue.
Blue lotus is interesting.
So what's the deal with the blue lotuses?
Yeah. What's the symbolism there?
Well, the story doesn't say explicitly,
Okay.
but in many Eastern traditions, the
Mhm.
blue lotus is associated with wisdom, enlightenment, spiritual awakening.
Okay.
So the transformation of the lotuses might symbolize the shift in consciousness
Mhm.
that happened through Sunasefa's sacrifice.
So like his selflessness transformed everything.
Yeah, like a ripple effect.
That's a powerful image.
Okay, so we've gone through these stories about skepticism and vengeance, and we've even talked about karma and reincarnation. Yeah, it's been quite a journey through Blavatsky's mind.
As we wrap up our deep dive into nightmare tales, I'm wondering
Yeah.
what connects all of these stories together.
Right, is there like an overall message she was trying to get across?
Is there a common thread?
Yeah.
Well, it's like trying to solve a really complicated puzzle, right?
Yeah.
Each story gives us a different way to look at Blavatsky's beliefs. Like in the Blue Lotus, with those lotuses changing from white to blue.
Yeah.
That speaks to the idea that even when we make sacrifices, we can still grow spiritually.
Right.
And that theme of transformation, of going from a lower state of consciousness to a higher one,
Yeah.
that seems to run throughout all these stories.
Yeah, like she's saying there's always potential for growth.
You know, it's interesting because these stories, they aren't just meant to scare us.
Right.
They make us think about ourselves and the world in a different way.
They challenge us.
Yeah, they challenge our assumptions.
Yeah.
Remember our skeptic from A Bewitched Life?
Oh, yeah, the guy who wouldn't believe anything.
He clung to his rational worldview,
Mhm.
but his journey forced him to see that his way of looking at things was limited.
Right, he had to open his mind to new possibilities.
And in a way, aren't we all kind of like that skeptic sometimes?
Yeah, I think so.
We hold on to our beliefs even when they might not be completely true.
It's comfortable to stick with what we know.
Exactly. But I think Blavatsky is suggesting that we grow the most when we challenge ourselves,
Yeah.
when we go beyond what's familiar and embrace the unknown,
Even if it's a little scary.
even if it's unsettling.
Right.
So are you saying she was trying to make us all a little less skeptical?
Maybe.
Hmm.
Or maybe she was trying to show us that skepticism isn't always a bad thing,
Okay.
but it can become a problem if it stops us from seeing the bigger picture.
Ah, I see what you mean.
Like if we're so focused on what we think we know,
Yeah,
we might miss out on other possibilities.
that makes sense.
It's like she's saying, don't be afraid to question, but don't be afraid to consider other viewpoints.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this all ties back to her interest in the occult and theosophy.
Right.
She believed there was this whole hidden side to reality,
Mm-hmm.
a realm of spiritual forces and connections that most people ignore.
Yeah, like there's more to the world than what we can see.
Exactly. And so these nightmare tales, they're not just for entertainment.
Right.
They're her way of exploring those hidden realms
Mm-hmm.
and inviting us to consider them too.
Like opening our minds to the possibilities.
And by mixing real historical events with the supernatural,
Yeah.
she blurs the lines between what's real and what's imagined.
Right. It makes you wonder.
It's like she's asking, what if the things we think are impossible are actually true?
That's a mind-blowing thought.
This has been an amazing journey.
It really has.
We've encountered psychic assassins,
Yeah.
explored past lives,
Mm-hmm.
and seen the power of sacrifice.
Right.
Nightmare Tales isn't just a collection of scary stories.
It was more than that.
It's a look inside the mind of someone who is always questioning
Yeah.
always pushing the boundaries of what we think is possible.
She was ahead of her time.
And it's an invitation for all of us to do the same,
Right.
to approach the world with curiosity and wonder,
Yeah.
and maybe even a little bit of healthy skepticism.
Exactly.
Because who knows, maybe there's more to reality than we realize.
That's exciting and a little scary at the same time.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Helena Blavatsky.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and who knows, maybe you'll discover some mysteries of your own.
That's what it's all about.